Are you familiar with Teenage Engineering's OP-1? If not, we're going to start exploring all the different modes of what I think is the most powerful portable workstation on the market today. So stick around. Hello Internet, Chris Cline here with Alma Music Center in San Antonio, Texas. And today we're going to start looking at the OP-1. Now before we move on, if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do that because we are going to continue with this series that's featuring this amazing instrument. And today we're going to look at the synthesizer. There are 4 modes with the OP-1. You have the synth, the drum or the drum machine, tape machine, as well as the mixer, and then there's a sequencer as well. But the 4 main modes are synth, drum, tape, and mixer. And once again, today we're going to look at the synthesizer engine and what it can do. Now, we're not going to cover every single thing. There's a couple of things that I'm going to leave out, which I'm going to go into greater detail later on, like the LFO, for instance. You can modulate the heck out of this thing. The LFO is super powerful, and I had mentioned that before when we did a quick little intro to us announcing that we actually were carrying Teenage Engineering product. But today, for all intents and purposes, we're going to look at the synth engine, the basics of that, how we can get around in it, and what it can do for you and your production. So let's go ahead and look at and listen to the synth engine. So let's explore the synth engine on the OP-1. So right now, by default, when I boot the OP-1 up, it's going to take me to the tape machine. And to get out of that, all we do is press this little squiggly line right here. Looks like a sine wave, and that's going to take us to our synth engine, right? And the first thing we're going to see is this funny little graphical display that's showing me what this synth engine looks like. So let's not be so concerned about what it looks like, but let's hear how it sounds. So I'm just going to play a very basic C chord. Oh, and this is actually set to monophonic, right? So the way we get around our synth engine is relatively simple. You just need to remember which keys do what. And it doesn't get super, super deep. It's actually laid out really, really well. So we have our 4 encoders right here. These may or may not change depending on what kind of engine we're looking at. And there are various engines that exist within synth mode. If I'm being interchangeable with synth engine and mode, please excuse me. We are in synth mode, and we're going to look at the different synth engines just to clarify. So of course we have our keyboard. Our keyboard is 2 octaves. This keyboard is not going to be friendly to everybody. It depends on what kind of fingers you have. It's a little clunky for me, but it does exactly what it needs to do, and that is input information, right? If I want to jump up or down an octave, all I do is use the 2 keys right here, the left arrow and the right arrow. So if I press the right arrow, it's going to show me that I've jumped up 1 octave. You can see that they're the +1. Right? Or we go back down, and we can take it down pretty low. So we are now 4 octaves down, and this is probably going to sound like a weird animal passing gas. Cool? Now we have the 4 tape keys or T keys, 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are going to change functionality depending on which type of synth engine you are in. And then we have 8 presets, right? So right now, this is the default preset or preset 1. Let's go ahead and press number 2, and you will notice that this display is going to change. 3, 4. And now this display is going to change depending on what happens with these knobs or these encoders as well. It's going to change the sound of the current synth engine. So those are the 8 presets. Let's go back to preset number 1, and let's explore the encoders. So as I turn this blue encoder, you will notice that the timbre changes slightly. gets a little brighter, and there is an LFO attached to it already. If we move the green encoder, we start messing with the harmonic content or the interval of the root. Now the white encoder is detuning ever so slightly. And again, these are going to change depending on the engine. And the red encoder starts to add some noise and distortion, okay? But we can do so much more. So let's go ahead and look at T1. Oh, I'm sorry, we're in T1 right now. T2, and T2 is going to allow us to address the ADSR, or our amplitude envelope, with the blue encoder being our attack. Really slow attack. And let's illustrate it like this. Let's go ahead and bring the white encoder, of course, is our sustain. The green encoder is our decay. So we can have a nice long decay. We can adjust the sustain. And then we have down here at the end, the red encoder, and the end of our ADSR envelope is going to be our release. So that's going to give us a long release. If I bring it all the way over to the right, the release happens as soon as I let go of the key. So there is the key off as well as the key on with this synth, okay? Now, we're not just limited to this particular synth engine when we're in synth mode. We're still in preset number 1, but I can press Shift and 1, and as you see here, now we've opened up all the different engines that exist within here. So we got cluster. You can hear how it changes. And one of the nice things about this, and I think I had mentioned this before, the very first introductory video, excuse me, is that when we change the engine, all the other settings, the envelope and everything else, all stay put. They are static. So Dr. Wave, Dr. Synth, DNA, FM, phase, pulse, sampler, and string, which is like a physical modeling synth. So that's all in the blue column. The green column are all the presets that exist within these different synth engines. So there's no shortage of presets. And presets are always a great launch pad for developing or trying to figure out how sounds are designed. So if we go back to our original engine, which was digital, and I've changed the preset over here. There we go, so let's go there, press 1 again. We go back to this original displayer page, which is showing us the engine that we are in and how these encoders are going to respond. And you can notice that it's all color-coded. You have these blue dots, you have the green dot, the white, and the red. Those all relate to the encoders that exist right here, the 4 encoders. Now, as we move down, our T, or our tape track keys, 1 through 4, you will notice that things are going to change. So remember, 1 is our initial settings for the synth itself, or for the synth engine. 2 is going to be our ADSR, or envelope. 3 becomes our effects. Now if I press it again, it's going to turn the effects loop on. And we have this delay. modulation. And we're not going to dive deep into the effects because we could have a whole entire video on the different effects that exist on here. But there are quite a bit. And when I pressed Shift and 3, it opens up a window to all the different effects that exist. We have CWO, delay, grid, nitro, phone punch. Some of these names are a little bit cryptic, but at some point we are going to get into what all these do. But for right now, we're just going to leave the delay on. And so press 3 again. And now we're back to a different type of delay. And this is going to be a little more of a traditional type of delay where you can actually hear the repeats. And the interfaces for the effects can become a little funky as well. So once again, we will jump into that later, into the effects. We're just looking at the synth engine now and how we are able to move around the synth engine or the synth mode and access the different engines that exist within synth mode. So let's go ahead and look at 4. 4 is our LFO. There are a lot of different LFOs that we can address as well, and we're going to get into that later. So let's go back to 1. And here we are back to the screen once again. So let's go ahead and go to a different preset. Now this engine, and I'm still not familiar with all of them, is the voltage engine. So let's go ahead and do that. And so as we move our encoders, you will notice that the sound starts to change again. You can actually hear it becoming a little more sharp and resonant as we change the waveform, which that's what's happening with the white encoder. And then the red encoder is changing the voltage. I presume that's what they're referring to, 380 volts. We go to 3, and with this one, hold down Shift, press 3, we're looking at the Pulse synth engine with the preset Moonweed. So as we move the white encoder, it's like we're changing the way the harmonic content is structured, I presume. The green encoder is changing the level or the amplitude. The M encoder, or the red encoder, is incorporating an LFO of sorts. It's like a resonant LFO. It's really quite nice. So when I am in the ADSR window, if I hold down Shift, we go into what they call play mode, right? And you will notice here it says it's legato. We can change the synth engine. There it's in mono. But if we want to be polyphonic, we can do that as well. So we can play chords, right? We can also adjust, once again, the portamento or the glide time between notes. So let's turn this way up. Oops. Let's go back to there, to poly. And we'll turn this way up. Now it's going to be in mono. So that's how we adjust how many notes we play or what the polyphony of the keyboard is. And once again, we have monophonic, legato, unison, and polyphonic. So it's a very, very powerful synth engine, and you can also save your presets to your computer. Whenever you plug the OP-1 in, it can do any number of things. Excuse me, when you plug the OP-1 into your computer, it can do any number of things. First off, the internal battery is going to charge off of the USB bus. But it's also going to allow you to turn the OP-1 into basically like a target disk. When you do that, you're going to see the internal drive of the OP-1 on the desktop of your computer, which is going to have presets, recordings that you've made, just about anything that relates to the OP-1 itself. You can also turn it into its own controller, but we will talk about that in greater detail later. As far as the synth engine is concerned, we have covered everything today, and I haven't really, played around too much. I just wanted you to get an idea of how you can manipulate the synth engine, what it takes to move around, and get to understand the interface for the synth mode, excuse me. I wanted you to understand how that interface works. Again, it's up to you to how you want to exploit synth mode and all the different engines that exist. There's no limit to what you can create or the sounds you can create as a sound designer and synthesis using synth mode and the various engines that exist on the OP-1. So as you can see in here, the OP-1 synth engine has no shortage of options, and it's completely robust. And as long as you have the imagination and the skills needed to navigate the synth engine, really the sky's the limit. You can program any type of sounds that you want into this device. You can save, again, 8 different patches. You can store everything on your computer, on your laptop. There's just no shortage of what you can achieve with the synth engine with the OP-1. We are going to explore the other modes in further videos. The next one, of course, will be the drum or the drum machine that exists on here. And you're going to find that that is also incredibly robust, especially when you start adding your own samples. So let's go ahead and end this video on the OP-1 and the synth engine. And I hope that you tune in to the next video. Eventually, we are going to put all these elements together and we're going to create a song in real time, which will be a lot of fun, but we're not quite there yet, but we are going to do that. So let's go ahead and end this. Again, subscribe if you haven't done so. We have our guitar channel, piano channel, bass channel, accordion channel. Go ahead and check those out too if you have some time. And as I always say, be kind to each other, keep on creating. Comment down below, let us know more about what you want to see and hear with the OP-1, and you have already chimed in with some of that, and we are going to address it. That's it for this one. So stick around for the next one, which is the drum, and I will see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.